In radio and television, it's RCA all the way. The Radio Corporation of America presents The Magic Key. The Magic Key turns, opening the door to a star-studded hour of comedy, drama, music, and radio variety. Today, the Magic Key will present for your interest and entertainment a scene from Robert Sherwood's sensational hit, Abe Lincoln in Illinois, starring Raymond Massey as Lincoln, the popular Metropolitan Opera Company prima donna, HELEN JEPSON, the virtuoso of the xylophone, YOICHI HIRAOKI, and the urbane wit and wisdom of Clifton Fadiman. Your host is the family of RCA, whose members include RCA Victor, RCA Institutes, Radio Marine, RCA Communications, and the National Broadcasting Company. Our own conductor, Frank Black, provides the overture as the Magic Key Orchestra begins the staccato beat of Moszkowski's brilliant Malagueña. Fresh from 5 Midwestern lectures, Clifton Fadiman has returned to the Magic Key, prepared to make an important announcement.
Important? Oh, no, Mr. Cross, you can't catch me out like that. Remember Voltaire's remark, beware of that man, he believes everything he says. What I have to say, however, is this. Ladies and gentlemen, all my life I've been puzzled by two things. One is, who was the bold man, as Jonathan Swift puts it, who first ate an oyster? And the other is, what genius was it that first learned to play the xylophone? But the fact that the xylophone is a difficult instrument is not necessarily important either. The point is that in the hands of a first-rate performer, it can be an instrument of subtlety and considerable beauty. Musical scoffers may call the xylophone the woodpile, but when YOICHI HIRAOKI picks up the hammers to play in the concert halls, the leading critics come to listen and to applaud. We feel sure that Mr. HIRAOKI will ably replace the renowned harpist, Carlos Salcedo, who could not be with us today because of a sudden indisposition. YOICHI HIRAOKI opens his program with his own transcription of the lively rondo from Mozart's violin sonata in B-flat major, featuring the concert artist Vladimir Brenner at the piano. This time, YOICHI HIRAOKI is joined by Frank Black and the orchestra as we hear the rousing Hungarian Csárdás by Monti. Thank you, YOICHI HIRAOKI. All right, Mr. Clark.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, the Magic Key of RCA presents The March of Time.
Life, the life of the world, its conflicts and achievements, its news and fun, its leaders and its common people.
The magazine Life presents every week the life of the world in pictures. On Life's cover this week, a picture of Culbert Olson, cigar-smoking Democratic candidate for governor in California's fantastic election campaign. And inside this week's new issue of Life, pictures from all the world and from every field of human activity, in news and in science, art and politics, sports, fashions, movies, the theater. So this week and every week, all the phases of modern living are portrayed in the magazine of pictures, Life.
In Life, too, this week is a picture story of one great and vital U.S. industry. In the pages of Listen, the 5-page monthly feature advertisement by the Radio Corporation of America. This week, as RCA Victor celebrates its 40th anniversary, Listen makes you an eyewitness of the rise and growth and development of an industry non-existent 40 years ago, which today supports more people than the population of the city of Los Angeles, an industry created by the discoveries and research of modern-day science.
December 1901. In a lonely shed near St. John's, Newfoundland, two young men sit hunched over a strange, complex machine from which runs a wire to a kite flying in the high wind outside.
Hear anything? Static. Nothing but static. Wait. Did you get it? Here, you try. See if you hear anything.
I hear it. It's the signal. 3 dots, the letter S.
The young Guglielmo Marconi has received a signal sent by electricity across the Atlantic along the invisible waves of the ether. A new medium of human communication comes into being, and a new industry is born. Meanwhile, in a cluttered little laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey, a bushy-browed young man turns a crank on a strange-looking homemade box, listens intently as from the box comes sound.
Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
The voice of Thomas Alva Edison in the world's first recording, imprisoning sound waves on the wax cylinder of Edison's talking machine. So the 20th century begins with two great fundamental inventions. One mastering the waves of sound, the other the invisible waves in the ether.
Today, RCA Victor celebrates its 40th anniversary. It is a leader in a great American industry, born of inventive genius and tireless scientific research. An industry completely non-existent 40 years ago, which today supports over 1.25 million people and promotes employment for hundreds of thousands more. An industry which links science and art, communication and manufacture and entertainment.
Nerve center of U.S. transoceanic wireless are RCA's gigantic stations on Long Island and in California, where antennas directed to all parts of the world are in operation 24 hours a day. RCA Communications have created jobs for thousands of men in factories and the manufacture of equipment, and at their operators' posts all over the world, on land and on ships at sea.
Kein Zweifel mehr übrig bleibt. Es bringt jetzt für diese Zeit nicht mehr ein Tor oder ein Mann, sondern das deutsche Volk.
The voice of Adolf Hitler speaking to his people last month in Europe's great crisis of 1938. Brought across the Atlantic on RCA's transatlantic shortwave circuit. Broadcast throughout the United States by NBC.
heard in millions of homes on RCA Victor radio receivers. The mighty music of Arturo Toscanini and other great music masters of our day, immortalized in RCA Victor records and brought to you by radio. The miracle of modern radio broadcasting not only affords more than 70 million people the highest measure of entertainment and brings them on stage with the world's great events, but it has created direct employment which supports more than 1.25 million people, working in studio and factory and office and retail store. The creative talent of the artist and writer, the delicate skill of fingers assembling radio parts, the master craftsmanship of cabinet makers, the knowledge and ingenuity of technical experts, the enterprise and service of retail merchants, and the unending quest of scientists for ever higher realization of radio's potentialities. So today, the discoveries of Edison and Marconi have swept across vast new horizons, have grown into a great young industry which employs hundreds of thousands of people, an art which brings to millions the world's finest in music and entertainment, a science whose uncharted future will bring unguessed new miracles of discovery and achievement. Time marches on.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Clifton Fadiman again, telling you about a date you have with a young lady. Helen JEPSON is one of the pleasantest proofs that first-rate sopranos needn't necessarily be either European or constructed along the lines of an overstuffed sofa. Miss JEPSON's streamlined American quality hasn't hindered her from succeeding in classic operatic roles. One of the Metropolitan's leading sopranos, she's won popularity in the concert field, in motion pictures, and on the air. The Magic Key is glad to welcome an operatic star who really deserves the rather overworked adjective glamorous. Helen JEPSON. Miss JEPSON sings for us an aria, which is one of her most popular Victor recordings, the impassioned Vici d'arte from the second act of Puccini's opera, La Tosca. Now, for the lilting gaiety of a tarantella, Helen JEPSON singing Rossini's vivacious La Danza. From Victor Herbert's ever-popular operetta, Eileen, Helen JEPSON sings as an encore the familiar ballad, Thine Alone.
My own, tell me
Modern radio broadcasting began with an election broadcast 18 years ago. On November 2nd, 1920, the pioneer station KDKA, now the Pittsburgh outlet of the National Broadcasting Company's Blue Network, broadcast the Harding-Cox presidential vote. That single broadcast astounded the nation with the miracle of radio. Next Tuesday, instead of one station, 160 affiliated NBC stations will bring up-to-the-minute national, state, and local election results into every radio-equipped living room. And whatever those results may be, radio has played its part in determining them. The voices of the candidates have sounded in the homes of the nation, and the radio listener will go to the polls next Tuesday armed with an immediate and intimate knowledge of candidates and issues that no voter could possess even a few years ago. To give its vast audience an accurate and vivid account of the balloting throughout the nation, NBC has gathered a staff of political experts. Raymond Clapper, noted political columnist, will interpret the national trend, and Graham McNamee, veteran radio commentator, will head a trained staff that will furnish the election bulletins to you as fast as the votes are counted. Equally complete, timely, and accurate returns on local issues and candidates will be provided by your local NBC stations. Listen for the familiar NBC chime, your signal for fine radio service and entertainment. The Magic Key of RCA, presenting at this time a learned dissertation on the science of hostess trapping when dining out. All right, Mr. Clifton Fadiman, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, some time ago, I devoted a good deal of attention to the problem of getting a hostess to pay any attention to me in a restaurant. Now, you must have the same trouble yourself. Now, before I explain how you get a hostess to look in your direction when you want something, I will tell you how hostesses are selected for their jobs. There are 4 basic tests. The applicant must get a passing grade in extension, chin inclination, eye glaze, and automatic ear muffling. Now, the extension test is very simple. The applicant must be sufficiently tall so that it will be impossible for her to notice, without considerable bending, the signal of any seated guest under the size of Primo Carnera. Now, second, the chin inclination test. Let us assume that the common or non-hostess chin is normally held out from the vertical line of the neck, roughly at a right angle. Looking up from 34th Street to the Empire State Tower, one enlarges this angle considerably, approaching as a limit 180 degrees or a straight angle. When her chin achieves that tilt, she's hired. However, fully to protect the hostess against being successfully signaled by any guest, 2 other safeguards are called into play. One is the eye glaze. Now, this physiological trick is used when the glances of the hostess and the patron accidentally meet. Exactly at the split second of intersection, a sort of semi-opaque film is drawn over the eyes of the hostess, and she floats by. This is the eye glaze. Now, it is at this point that the average or amateur guest will tend to utter some such salutation as "Miss," in accents ranging from a frightened mutter to a hoarse groan of anguish. Should the diner thus call out, the hostess reacts with another specialized physiological effect, the automatic ear muffle, which requires no further description. Now, the applicant who passes these 4 tests, extension, chin inclination, eye glaze, and automatic ear muffling, becomes a hostess in a restaurant and is ready to non-observe guests professionally. Now, what are you, the patron, to do? First, it is important not to be discouraged. Indeed, I know of a case in which a patron suddenly held up his index finger, caught a hostess completely off guard, and actually got her attention without more ado. This is known as a hostess in one. I shall be glad to hear of other instances, providing they are accredited by notary public. Now, here are some suggestions for getting the attention of a hostess. First, tripping her up as she passes is not good form. It has, I grant you, been done. I have done it myself, though only when wearing tennis shoes. A light kick on the shin, apparently accidental, as your hostess goes by, is excusable and often effective, though the average hostess' shin tends to be bony and must be approached with caution. Never, of course, pinch a hostess. The sudden putting on of a mask as the hostess floats by, or the wearing on the patron's part of luminous paint, or the use of various noise-producing machines such as rattles, whistles, and small cap pistols, all these have their points, but they are tainted with a fatal defect, ladies and gentlemen. They are too easily remembered. Your competent hostess may stop once at the sound of a cap pistol or the sight of a cutout pumpkin, quickly adjusted over the patron's face, but she will never do so again. I learned that much when I was doing and sewing my first table d'hôte. Now, the simplest of the Fadiman methods of hostess trapping is the small boy decoy. To work this successfully, you are obliged to own a small boy, as I do. Now, it's possible that for a consideration, the telegraph companies would provide you with a small boy on demand. But this is out of my field. I merely lay down the method of attack. I supply no ammunition. Now, here's the way it goes. A hostess, while she will pay no attention to the most frantic adult, will, upon noticing that a small boy is in the party, at once bend over, smile, coo, gurgle, be gracious, and offer him a plate of pink mints. At this point, you have your hostess. She's bent over, chin angle gone, eye glaze forgotten, ear muffle cut out. You address your request to her, and the thing is done. The small boy, once his work is over, may be stuffed under the table, together with the mints, and be forgotten until you wish to attract the attention of the hostess again, at which point the small boy is dragged out again. A fairly tough small boy will last you about a dozen meals before wearing out. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and if you have any further hostess-attracting problems, just write them in to me. If I don't reply immediately, it'll be because I didn't get the letter. My secretary used to be a restaurant hostess herself. Thank you.
The distinguished young American composer Robert Sanders has just published a symphonic novelty called Saturday Night, an orchestra interpretation of a country barn dance. The various instruments reproduce the sounds of rustic revelry as the composition is played by Frank Black and the Magic Key Orchestra. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask your indulgence while we address an important message to the merchants who supply you with Victor records and RCA Victrolas. Attention all RCA Victor music dealers. If you are unable to get all the 40th anniversary RCA Victrolas you would like for reserve stock, please be patient. All available factory facilities are being used. We are rushing 40th anniversary Victrolas to your distributors as rapidly as possible. Thank you, members of the Magic Key audience. Although the 40th anniversary Victrola has met with an unprecedented welcome, you should experience no difficulty in obtaining one if you act promptly. The 40th anniversary Victrola combines a magnificent automatic record-changing phonograph mechanism with a fine electric tuning radio at an exceptional price, $175 FOB Camden, New Jersey. But in addition, RCA Victor dealers and distributors are cooperating to allow you $40 trade-in allowance for your old radio or phonograph. This makes the price of the 40th anniversary RCA Victrola to you only $135 FOB Camden, New Jersey, plus your old radio or phonograph. See your RCA Victor music dealer about this amazing offer. Ask him to demonstrate the 40th anniversary Victrola with the new Victor record releases for November, just out. The Great Symphony No. 5 in E-flat major, brilliantly played by the Boston Symphony Orchestra under the direction of Serge Kouzovitsky. Mozart's Magic Flute Overture, played by the BBC Orchestra under the baton of the incomparable Toscanini, and many others.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Clifton Fadiman again. Over at the Plymouth Theater in West 45th Street, New York, there's a play running called Abe Lincoln in Illinois by Robert Sherwood, starring Raymond Massey. Very few, if any, new plays in the past 10 years have been greeted with quite as much critical acclaim. Robert Sherwood's picture of Lincoln, so quiet, so sad, so deeply understanding, is stirring the hearts of many Americans night after night. And Raymond Massey, whose resemblance to Lincoln is extraordinary, is creating a classic role in what will, I think, prove a classic drama. In a recent interview, Mr. Massey mentioned Lincoln's clarity of vision and his terrible loneliness. And then, and this is the phrase I'd like you to remember, he spoke of the quality which, when coupled with genius, is the greatest asset a great man can have, the point of view of the little man. The Magic Key is proud to present a scene from the play Abe Lincoln in Illinois with Herbert Rudley, Marion Rooney, Herbert Brown, and Howard De Silva from the cast, and starring Raymond Massey. The scene is on the prairie. It's a clear, cool, moonlit evening. In the foreground is a campfire. In the background is a covered wagon. Seth Gale is standing by the fire, holding his 8-year-old son, Jimmy, in his arms. The boy is wrapped up in a blanket.
No, son. Keep the blanket on. You're better off if you keep yourself covered. Goby's getting the water for you now. Hello, Jack.
Hi, Seth.
I was afraid you got lost.
I couldn't get lost anywhere around New Salem. How's the boy?
He's a little bit thirsty. Did you find Abe?
Yes, it took me some time because he wandered off. He went out to the old cemetery across the river to visit Ann Rutledge's grave.
Is he coming here?
He said he'd better go get Doc Chandler, who lives on the Winchester Road. He'll be along in a while.
Oh, I'm glad you're back, Mr. Armstrong.
There'll be a doctor here soon, Mrs. Gale.
Thank God for that. Bring him in the wagon, Seth. I got a nice soft bed all ready for him.
You hear that, Jimmy? Your ma's fixed a place in the wagon where you can rest comfortable. And Goby will bring you the water.
He's worse, ain't he?
Yes, the fever's been raging something fierce since you left. It'll sure be a relief when Abe gets here. He can always do something to put confidence in you.
How long since you've seen Abe, Seth?
Haven't laid eyes on him since I left here. 7, 8 years ago. We've corresponded some.
Well, you may be surprised when you see him. He's changed plenty since he went up to Springfield. He climbed up pretty high in the world, but he appears to have slipped down lately. Now, he ain't much like his old comical self.
Well, I guess we all got to change. Oh, Aggie.
Yes?
Here's Goby with the water.
Yes, Miss Aggie. Here you are.
Thanks, Goby.
How's Jimmy, Mr. Seth?
About the same.
I'll fetch some water for the cooking.
Yeah.
How long you been on the road, Seth?
More than 3 months. Had a terrible time in the Pennsylvania mountains. Fearful rains and every stream flooded. I can tell you there was more than one occasion when I wanted to turn back and give up the whole idea. Say, is that Abe coming now?
Yep, that's him, all right.
My gosh, look at him. Store clothes and a plug hat. Hello, Abe.
Hello, Seth. Glad to see you again, Seth.
And me too, Abe.
Did my heart good when I heard you were on your way west. Where's your boy?
He's in there, in the wagon.
Is that the doctor?
No, Aggie. This is the man I was telling you about I wanted so much to see. This is Mr. Abe Lincoln, my wife, Mrs. Gale.
Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Gale.
I'm pleased to meet you, Mr. Lincoln.
Doc Chandler wasn't home. They said he was expected over at the Bossier farm at midnight. I'll go there then, fetch him.
It'll be a friendly act, Abe.
We'll be in your debt, Mr.
In
Lincoln.
the meantime, Mrs. Gale, I'd like to do whatever I can.
There's nothing to do, Abe. The boy's got the swamp fever, and we're just trying to keep him quiet.
There's just one thing I would wish. Is there any kind of a preacher in this godforsaken place?
Preacher?
You know any, Jack?
No, there ain't a preacher within 20 miles of New Salem now.
Well, I only thought if there was one, we might get him here to say a prayer for Jimmy.
She wants a preacher. That looks as if she'd given up, don't it?
It'd probably just comfort her.
Is your boy so very sick, Seth?
Yes, he is.
Why don't you speak a prayer, Abe? You could always think of something to say.
Afraid I'm not much of a hand at praying, Jack. I couldn't think of a blessed thing that'd be any real comfort.
Oh, never mind. It's just a religious idea of Aggie's. Sit down, Abe.
So you got your dream at last, Seth. You're doing what you and I used to talk about. You're moving.
Yes, Abe. We got crowded out of Maryland. The city grew up right over our farm. So we're headed for a place where there's more room. I wrote you, Abe, about 4 months back to tell you we were starting out, and I'd like to meet up with you here. I thought it was just possible you might consider joining in this trip.
Took a long time for your letter to catch up with me, Seth. I'd just been drifting around down Indiana and Kentucky where you used to live. Do you aim to settle in Nebraska?
No, we're not going to stop there. We're going to Oregon.
Oregon?
Sure, that's where they're all heading for.
We're making first for a place called Westport Landing. That's in Kansas, right on the frontier where they outfit the wagon trains for the far west. You join up there with a lot of others who are like-minded. So you've got company when you're crossing the plains and the mountains.
It's staggering to think of the distance you're going. And you'll be taking the frontier along with you.
Well, it may seem like a foolhardy thing to do, but we heard too many tales of the black earth out there. The balance of rainfall and sunshine.
Why don't you go with them, Abe? That country out west is getting settled fast. Why, last week alone, I counted over 200 wagons went past here. People from everywhere. Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Vermont, all full of jubilation at the notion of getting land. By gosh, I'm going to, as soon as I can get me a wagon. They'll need men like me to fight the Indians for them. And they'll need men with brains like you, Abe, to tell them how to keep the peace.
It's a temptation to go, I can't deny that.
Then what's stopping you from doing it? You said yourself you'd just been drifting.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I've been drifting too long. Is it just the three of you, Seth?
Yes, that's all. The three of us and Goby.
Is he your slave?
Goby? No, sir. He's a free man. My father freed his father 20 years ago. We've had to be mighty careful about Goby. You see, where we come from, folks are pretty uncertain how they feel about the slave question. And lots of good freed slaves get snaked over the line into Virginia and then sold downriver before you know it. And when you try to go to court and assert their legal rights, you're beaten at every turn by the dirty shyster lawyers. That's why we've been keeping well up in free territory on this trip.
Do you think it'll be free in Oregon?
Of course it will. It's got to.
No, it hasn't, Seth. Not for the politicians in Washington selling out the whole West piece by piece to the slave traders.
That territory has got to be free. If this country ain't strong enough to protect its citizens from slavery, then we'll cut loose from it and join with Canada. Or better yet, we'll make a new country out there in the far west.
A new country?
Why not?
I was just thinking, old Mentor Graham once said to me that one day the United States might be divided up into many hostile countries, like Europe.
Well, let it be. Understand, Abe. I love this country and I'd fight for it. And I guess George Washington and the rest of them loved England and fought for it when they were young. But they didn't hesitate to cut loose when the government failed to play fair and square with them.
My gosh, if Andy Jackson was back in the White House, he'd run out them traitors with a horsewhip.
It'd be a bad day for us Americans, Seth, if we lost you and your wife and your son.
My son? Oh, I've been talking big, but it's empty talk. If he dies, there won't be enough spirit left in us to push on any further. What's the use of working for a future if you know there won't be anybody growing up to enjoy it? Excuse me, Abe, but I'm feeling pretty scared.
Seth, you mustn't feel scared. I know I'm a poor one to be telling you that because I've been scared all my life.
You, Abe?
Yes. But seeing you here tonight and knowing the big thing you've set out to do makes me feel pretty small. And it makes me feel that I got to do something to keep you and your kind in the United States of America. Whatever happens, Seth, don't let anything beat you. Don't you ever give up.
Seth,
What is it, Aggie?
he's worse, Seth. He's moaning in his sleep, gasping for breath.
Never mind, honey, never mind. When the doctor gets here, he'll fix him up in no time. It's all right, honey. He'll get well.
If you wish me to, Mrs. Gale, I'll try and speak a prayer.
That's the way to talk, Abe.
We'll be grateful for anything you might say, Abe.
Oh, God, the Father of all living, I ask you to look with gentle mercy on this little boy here, lying sick in this covered wagon. His people are traveling far to make a new home in the wilderness, to do your work, God, to make this earth a good place for your children to live in. They can see clearly where they're going, and they're not afraid to face all the perils that lie upon the way. I humbly beg you not to take their child from them. Grant him the freedom of life. Do not condemn him to the imprisonment of death. Do not deny him his birthright. Let him know the sight of great plains and high mountains, of green valleys and wide rivers. For this little boy is an American. These things belong to him, and he to them. Spare him that he too may strive for the ideals for which his fathers have labored so faithfully and for so long. Spare him and give him his father's strength. Give us all strength, O God, to do the work that lies before us. I ask you this favor in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, who died upon the cross to set men free. Amen.
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 Must be getting near midnight. I'll go and fetch the doctor.
Thank you, Abe.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln.
And God bless you, Mr. Lincoln. Black and the Magic Key Orchestra have just played Autumn from Glazounoff's descriptive suite, The Seasons. The members of the family of RCA, RCA Victor, RCA Institutes, Radio Marine, RCA Communications, and the National Broadcasting Company invite you to listen to this same time next week to another full hour of radio entertainment. At that time, the Magic Key will present the world-famous Wagnerian tenor Lauritz Melchior, leading member of the Metropolitan Opera Company. One of Broadway's newest favorites, Catherine Locke, now playing opposite Maurice Evans in Hamlet, starring in the first performance of Sight Unseen, a play written especially for radio. The renowned king of the musical licorice stick, Benny Goodman, appearing with the Budapest String Quartet and playing Mozart's quintet for clarinet and strings. Episodes and epigrams by the noted critic, lecturer and editor, Clifton Fadiman, and Frank Black conducting the Magic Key Orchestra. Milton Cross speaking for all the services of the Radio Corporation of America and saying that in radio and television, it's RCA all the way.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.